So, my name is Chuck Huber, and your names are not Chuck Huber. So, I am a voice actor. This is my Gamechurch panel. This is the very first meeting of Chuck Huber's Gamechurch. I told Jessica, my fiance, that I wanted to start a church because then we didn't have to pay taxes on our house because it's a parsonage. And in order to start a church, you have to have meetings. So I said, I go to conventions all the time. This can be my regular meeting of my church, and I will be the Reverend Chuck Huber. I don't know if this is real or not. I just thought I'd try it because I thought it was funny. But before we start Gamechurch, the first, and I want you guys to know, when in history the world is changed by Gamechurch, you can say, I was at the very first Gamechurch service. I don't know what I mean. But what we're going to talk about eventually is we're going to talk about reality. And I like talking. Come in, ghost. Doesn't it sound like there's a ghost behind there? I like talking about reality because I think people walk around with their sort of blinders on to reality and they're just like, I wonder if I'm going to be rich. Which is pretty much what people think all the time, right? Or you think, where's the ice cream? That's what I think about. But before we start any of that, I wanted to let you guys ask any questions you had about anime, voice acting, being an actor, where I got this awesome t-shirt, any of that stuff that you wanted to ask to get out of the way, and then we'll start doing some Gamechurch stuff. Yes? Sure. Jessica got it for me at it's an art pop-up thing called Pop Shop that happens in Houston like twice a year, and somebody made them and was selling them. It's fucking incredible. It's pretty good, right? Yeah. It's got platonic solids up there, which platonic solids are going to figure prominently in Gamechurch because they're apparently controlling everything. Maybe, I don't know. Any other questions? Yeah.
Did you ever get any particular attachments to any of the voices that you did? Like, are there any that you particularly fell in love with?
Yeah, I kind of, the very first voice I did was Garlic Jr. And he was cool, but I didn't follow him. And then I did Android 17. Kind of fell in love with him because I thought he was a girl at first. I walked into the booth and I was like, she's totally hot. And they're like, that's your character. And I was like, I feel creepy. Because I found myself hot. Weird. Does that make me, I don't know what that makes me.
Why do you always play short people?
Because my Coolaloo. Yeah, I play a lot of short aliens, Garlic Jr. I don't know why. I also play crazy scientists. I have no idea why that is.
Did you not have father complex creepy?
Totally.
His daddy see where you're 7, he's like, oh, what is this for your father?
Yeah, poor baby. Gotta be sad about his dad all the time. I would love to be Edward Elric. That would have been awesome. Brother! I screwed up that whole anime. PA was probably my favorite that I ever did because I'd never been to a convention before here. And so I was like, I have a Funimation, and they were like, we want to take you to a con. And I was like, okay, what's a con? And they're like, it's short for convention. I'm like, what happens there? And they say, well, it's where people cosplay. And I said, start using English. They're like, you'll like it, trust us. And I was like, okay, I'll go to it. And I was like, what am I going to do? Pass out flyers? Watch my show. Give you lots of shows. Great show. And they were like, no, you're going to sign autographs. I was like, no, you're stupid. They're like, no, seriously, people love your character and they love you. And I was like, really weird. I don't think you know what's going on. Just come out, you'll like it. So I went out to this convention called, a little tiny baby convention called Otakon in Baltimore. It's like 40,000 people. No biggie. And, you know, I sat down at a table like this and, you know, there was no one there. And I was like, see you jerks, I told you, no one was going to be here. But they queued the line away from the table, so the line was like back that way. And they go, no, that's right there, that's the line. Chuck, the line goes on the seat, like, And so there was like this gigantic line, and they said, you're going to sign autographs for 4 hours. And I was like, okay. So I went from signing no autographs ever in my life to signing autographs for 4 hours for Hiei. And all these people in the line for Hiei, because they love Hiei. They like the Android 17 too, and some of them like Garlic Jr., and I've done a couple other characters too. Some blue gender people came up with blue gender discs, and that's about all I'd done at that point. It's about all Funimation had done at that point. And the first like 15, 20 minutes were a little scary because I didn't know what was going on. And people were like, ah! And I was like, ah! And then like, they'd like, here, sign this. And I was like, you know, like, I'd never done it before. So I was like, it's like a checkbook. Did I put the middle name in too? Or just, okay. There you are. And they're like, thank you. And the people like here were like, Chuck, you're gonna have to do that quicker. I was like, oh yeah, you're probably right. I need to have one of those like squishy, like, this is my autograph signatures. And so, you know, you had to like right there. Nobody teaches you this. You're just signing like it's a checkbook. But so that's kind of why Hiei is my favorite. And then like after 15, 20 minutes, I was calm and I got it. I got my little signature down and I was like, okay, I'm getting this. And I realized like all these people in line were just like all my friends from high school. So I was like, oh, you guys are nerds. You got this. I don't know why I did that, but I did it. Any other questions?
Yes. How did you get into voice acting?
That's a good question. I was at a rehearsal and that's typically how people get into everything in acting, is you're doing some acting somewhere and someone else at the acting thing you're doing says something that makes you go do something else. So I was at a rehearsal and my buddy came in and he's like, you should go audition for this Dragon Balls thing. And I was like, Dragon Balls? That sounds pornographic. He was like, no, it's Japanese anime. And I was like, okay, it's Japanese. He was like, no, it's cool, go do it. And so I went and auditioned for it. And I didn't think it was real at first, because I had been working as an actor in Chicago before I moved to North Texas. And so it was like Chicago, when you went and auditioned, there was a sign-in sheet and a casting director, and it was very, very serious. And this was like a bald dude, like, hey, my name's Chris, I'm on here. And Chris Sabat, and he's like, come on past the boxes. And it was like, you know, it was like, they were really hinky at first. It was a really small operation. I was like, okay, I'll do this, but I'm not sure anything's ever going to happen from it. And so, yeah, that's how I got into it, totally accidental.
That's cool.
And I almost didn't go. Like, it was one of those really, really crappy days when I had the audition. It was like the car. I literally had a flat tire on the way to the audition, and it was raining, so I'm like changing a flat tire in the rain. I'm like, it's stupid. I don't need to audition for stupid stuff in Texas. I'm a Chicago actor, and this is stupid. And then there was like a little voice like, Chuck, go to the... It was Vic Mignogna's voice. Audition, Chuck. I will need you to play Dr. McCoy in my Star Trek series later. And I was like, okay, I'll go. And then I went to the like, yeah, but seriously, I almost didn't go. I was almost like, forget it. And there was honestly a voice that I heard, and we all have that voice. And I talk about it all the time. This is part of Gamechurch now, kind of transitioning into Gamechurch. Like, I think we all have, like, we all know, and there's a lot of science to show that your very first impression of something, like whether it's a multiple choice answer, like you look at it, I think it's B, and then you like talk yourself out of it, and you're like, no, it's C, maybe it's D, I don't know. But 9 times out of 10, your first impression is right, and it's usually a voice that you hear. We talk to ourselves inside our heads all the time, excuse me, think of it. And that voice inside your head, the sort of calm, still player sitting on his great sofa in the sky with his controller, like playing you, go to the audition. That person knows what's right. And they've shown that your brain, and not only your brain, but your heart, which, did you know your heart has neurons in it? So you have brain cells in your heart. The ancient Greeks used to say the heart was where ideas came from. This was the seat of all emotions. And we're like, no, the heart is a mechanical pump that squeezes blood through your body. It doesn't do anything. Ha ha. Guess what they found out? They've done these wonderful magical little experiments on people where they're like, flash, 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 flashing pictures at people, and they have their brains and hearts hooked up to all the whatever magical science stuff. And your heart will react in anticipation. So in these pictures they're flashing you, they'll flash like a seriously violent image or a seriously pornographic image, and your heart reacts milliseconds before the picture is flashed. What? Say that again, Chuck. That sounds unreal. Your heart reacts in anticipation of the violent image about to be shown to you. How could that be possible? Because what we're told outside of Gamechurch, but in Gamechurch, I'll tell you the truth. What we're told outside of Gamechurch is that the only way to connect to people is like, I have to physically touch you, or I have to use my voice and say something to you. But we've all felt when someone's been staring at us, right? You ever felt that? Someone's staring at you, you're like, I play a game in the airport, Jessica hates it. It's a game I call the smile game. What I do is I usually get to the airport, early, and then, you sit down, and what I do is I just stare at someone walking by, and I stare, and I stare, and I stare until they turn around and look at me, and then I go, and then they either smile or they go, oh, or they walk away. But they never kind of look at you like accidentally. It's never like they're dragging their little suitcase. They never go like this. They always go like this. Like it snap right directly to you. So we can feel when we're being stared at. So the game that we're playing has other ways of interacting with the other players in the game. So one of the ways we can interact with each other is through eye-to-eye contact. And you know for a fact, when you stare into the eyes of someone you love, like something is going on there. Like you can feel like this magical connection. And one of the things they've discovered about the heart is that your heart, and it should probably have like a screen like with 5 hearts, and they should the hearts should decrease in number as you are sicker or sadder or whatever, but your actual heart has a magnetic field. They do that with the EKG, or whatever, they stick on your heart to measure, what is it? EKG. Are you a nurse?
No.
Doctor? Just magically smart?
I am.
Okay, good. So you have an EKG, you hook up to your heart, and it measures, they stick those sensors on you to measure the if you're, dope like me. So they're measuring the of your heart. It's a magnetic field your heart creates. Well, there was a guy who decided, they always measure that stuck to your chest. I wonder how big that magnetic field is. And he took a portable version of that, zeroed out for his own. He's like, okay, that's me. And let me measure you. Okay, and then it sticks it to the person's chest, and then takes a step back, and then takes a step back, and still read it, takes a step back. So how far back do you think he had to go before he couldn't read the magnetic field of the heart? 50 feet. How about 50 feet? 60 feet? Anyone 70? 80 feet? And it's 2 miles. He stopped at 2 miles because he was tired of walking backwards. And he did this in the high plains, the high desert of Colorado, where there was no electromagnetic interference. So he was really measuring the person's heart. So our hearts, and we all know what a magnetic field is, right? We know what radio waves are. We know that stuff does something, right? And your brain has one of those magnetic things too. Yeah? They can tell, they're starting to do these functional magnetic resonance imagery things where they can tell what you're thinking based on what's going on in the brain. And they've even done a study with comatose patients where they're talking to the comatose patients and they have them think about tennis. And so if I want you to think about tennis, if the answer, the first one they did was Think about tennis if the answer to this question is yes. Don't think about tennis if the answer to this question is no. And so they started talking to people in comas by making them think. They'd think about tennis to say yes, which would register in the brain a certain way. And they wouldn't think about tennis, and that would register as a no. And they were talking to people in comas. And there's a guy named Rupert Sheldrake, and he is the molecular biologist who discovered the mechanism behind programmed cell death. I don't know what that means, but I can say it in a row. But it is important science stuff. He's well known in the molecular biology arena. If they have cage fights for molecular biology. So he's really well known for this, of being a really famous scientist. And then he's decided to commit career suicide by studying what's called fringe science. And part of what Gamechurch does, it exists in opposition to another church. And that church it exists in opposition to, like our evil enemy church, is called science. Because there is a church of science that says, do not think outside what is in the textbook or you will be destroyed. And Rupert Sheldrake decided he would think outside the textbook, and he was ostracized. And his TED Talk, if you Google Rupert Sheldrake banned TED Talk, he gave a TED Talk, and they won't put it on the TED website because he said stuff that people don't want to hear. But his basic field of study is called morphic fields.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this.
You've heard about morphic fields? In his the first major experiment he did was, and it's all detailed in a book called Dogs Who Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. Because what other people would call psychic abilities, us in Gamechurch, we call it, that's just our morphic field ability. We have a morphic field ability that allows you to feel when someone is staring at you. We've all felt that. And as a matter of fact, the longest running science experiment currently ongoing is in the Netherlands at a science museum, and it proves conclusively that you can feel when someone's staring at you. And Rupert Sheldrake does, he has that experiment that he repeated, but the one that he's well known for is the dogs who know when their owners are coming home. How many of you have dogs who know when you're coming home? You ever had that? Some people have had that experience. He did a double-blind study with people who say, my dog always knows when I'm coming home. And so he set up video cameras on the dog, video cameras on the people. People get a telegram, a balloon, a text messages, a phone call, says, take a cab, ride this bike, here's a unicycle, crawl home on your belly. So it's totally double-blind, random, don't know how or when you're coming home, and then you come home. As soon as the person, the owner, has the intention to come home, I know, I better go home. Starts the intention to go home. The dog goes to its spot, saying, this is where I wait for my owner. So there's a connection that happens between animals, between people. I often there's an experiment I want to do if I'm ever like really rich and bored. And it's, how many of you ever felt homesick in your life, right? Now, when you're homesick and you're a little kid, they're like, no, you're some water, you'll be okay, it's all in your brain, you're fine. But when you're homesick, it feels like here, right? It feels like death, like I am going to die. And my theory is that homesickness comes from the first time you're outside your family's morphic field. So your family creates a field. And your family creates this sort of loving field that you exist in. And that's why if you were to be banished from a family, it would feel so horrible. That's why in Shakespeare's time, and many Shakespeare plays, banishment they consider worse than death. Because you've been banished from your country, a country creates a morphic field. A convention creates a morphic field. And the morphic field study, my favorite experiment they did for morphic fields was one where they had an artist draw one of those pictures. And you look at the picture and you can count like 7 or 8 faces in it. But if someone teaches you, you can see like 54 faces in it. Oh yeah, oh, there's another face. Oh, you see all the faces. And so they isolated a group in Australia and isolated a group in Great Britain. And they tested both groups. They both scored like 7 or 8 faces. Then they isolated the group in Australia so that they couldn't, no media. And then they broadcast on an English show, like a Believe It or Not show, the 54 faces, and how to see all 54 faces, and taught like 500,000 people in England how to see all 54 faces. And then they immediately test the isolated group in Australia, and they're scoring, instead of 7 or 8, they're suddenly scoring 36, 37, 38. So because people in England could see more faces, people in Australia could see more faces. And we've all had this experience. I invented Redbox, the DVD. I invented that. And then it came out. We've all had that experience where you go, oh, what would be great would be, oh my God, it's there. I one time went to a Costco and I was like, wouldn't it be great if there was butter that was tasty, like honey butter? And then there was like a stand with like honey butter that they were giving out to people as samples. I'm like, I'm controlling the universe. I just made the butter appear. So we've all had that experience where we're like, and as a matter of fact, one of the most interesting comic examples of this was Dennis the Menace. This is before the internet, before, there were two comic artists who created independently of each other Dennis the Menace with a grumpy neighbor, with the same exact cartoon premise. Thousands and thousands of miles apart. And we all know the stories of mothers who are like, something's happened to my child. And then come to find out their child is, I'm not going to make him dead because that would make this less funny, been severely painted in a spray painting accident. So the stories of mothers who have felt something happen to their child far, far, far away from them are too numerous to count. My favorite anecdotal story between a mother and a child was a developmentally delayed son who was also legally blind and had not been tested at the optometrist in a long time. So they came to time for the optometrist testing, and they brought the boy in, and he was scoring 20/20. So his vision was suddenly 20/20, and the optometrist was like, I know you're blind, I can look at your, what is wrong? And so the optometrist sent the mother out of the room, and the boy scored his actual vision. So there's some sort of symbiotic relationship we create with people. You know that with your best friend, where you look at your best friend and you go, ha, yeah, and then suddenly you have to walk to the store together or whatever, because you just interpreted whatever grunts you had to be the communication you needed to understand what was going on. And Jess and I, my fiance and I, we talk about this all the time, because she'll be like, how they have forensic files, and we're like, yes, and then we watch it. Or she'll be like, my chicken, yes, that's my chicken. Yes.
Do you believe in psychics?
Psychic is a different word. Psychic is a word that...
a psychic ability is words that you don't have to see to spell it exactly.
Yeah, I think what I'm describing is called morphic fields, which I think what happened is people went, and especially when you say psychic, it's like, crystal ball, let me tell you your future, which is cool. I mean, that can totally happen to you. There's lots of people who think that is totally a possibility. But one thing I know, we're all, the way we all know we're psychic, and this is another of Rupert Sheldrake's experiments, and he's shown it with this experiment that this is pretty conclusively true. And we've all had this psychic experience, foretelling the future. And when I say it, you're all going to nod your head and go, oh God, yeah, we've all had that experience. And the experience goes like this. Sarah. Oh my God, Sarah! Right?
Yeah.
Who of you have had that experience where I was just thinking about you, and the phone rings. If you go to Rupert Sheldrake's website, you can check it out. You can set yourself up to try that experiment, to become a part of the experiment, where you're like, I told the future, because I knew you were calling. And it's a field thing. We're all part of the same field. And I think that's what psychic ability is. And people who get really super skilled at it maybe can discern through the whatever that there is something more specific coming down the line. Did you have an experience or something you wanted to
Do you
share?
believe it after the fact, not for a premonition? It's something that's already happened to that degree.
I don't know what that means.
Like,
But that's okay because I'm kind of stupid.
I know one of the best cases is animals. They have the sense that they see more than we do, the field of play, everything else, all that stuff. 30s, 40s, the horse that could predict and help the police catch people. The smart horse that they taught to read letters and words, and then a Boston police officer calls them 2 states away, and the horse naps out a street or a name of the house exactly, and then they find the body.
See, and when I go to Gamechurch, I think like some dude was like, hey, you want to play Life on Earth? And he's like, yeah, sure, but I only got 50 blah blahs or whatever, money they use up there. And he's like, okay, well then you only get to play a horse in Boston. Okay, let me play horse in Boston. So I don't know if we are ourselves or we are an avatar or there's something else inside of us, or we are an expression of something outside of us, but yeah, maybe that horse was a dude who's like, man, I got totally ripped on my life. I had to be a horse, but I was smart. Yes.
You believe in the possibility of psychokinesis and pyrokinesis and stuff like that?
Yes, keep trying. We'll always keep trying. I've been trying that since the force. Since I was 7 years old. The amount of time I spent hanging upside down in the snow trying to get my lightsaber to come to me. Like that poor kid. What's Charlie doing? And my family called me Charlie. What's Charlie doing out in the snow? Trying to get his lightsaber to come to him. I used to spend hours trying to make pencils move on my desk, and one time I accidentally breathed out my nose and made it move, and I was like, oh! I did it! Totally made it move! But it didn't. It was my breath. Yes.
So, as far as that goes, do you believe we can truly get better at it in that sense? It's not a matter of like mental, physical, or even mental aspect.
I'll tell you this, and this is the first superpower. The great thing about Gamechurch is that Gamechurch gives out superpowers to help you level up. I don't know. But one of the first, I believe all skills can be improved. I think if you were to practice, and the key is when something happens, to very quickly in your memory recall what that felt like. Like I am constantly, like when I hear that voice, the Vic Mignogna voice in my head, Chuck, I didn't do that. Or don't do that. Like just driving down here yesterday, I had that voice and I was like, Gurgensnoggle, which is the only swear word I use typically in public. Gurgensnoggle. But I was driving down the highway and there was this big plume of smoke way sort of far away. And like the voice inside my head went, there's your last exit. And I went, there's my last exit. And I kept driving. And then there were no other exits. And then the highway stopped for 3 hours. And we were dead stopped on the highway for 3 hours. And as it stopped, I said, Jessica, the voice told me there's my last exit. And I should have listened to it. But so when I have an experience like that, I try to hone in on what was I feeling, what did it sound like, what did it feel like, any detail I can get. I become a student of Gamechurch. I become a student of the game that is here and the extra skills that we can possibly have. And so I'm always listening to that voice after the fact, like I wonder what Sarah's doing. Ring. Oh my God, it's Sarah. What did that feel like to think? I wonder what Sarah. What were the words I used? What did I see? What was I hearing? So that you can discern it after the fact, so that maybe you can experience it as it's happening. Typically, we experience morphic abilities after they happen. Someone's staring. There was one time I was on the 3rd floor of a hotel, and a dude was loading up his van. And it was like the pool balcony. I would lean over the balcony and stare at him, and he was 3 floors down, loading the van back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I made him turn around. He was like pushing stuff to his van, and he'd go. Like he couldn't. His eyes wouldn't let him look up to me up there, and when he turned around, I go. And I'd stare at him again, and then he'd turn around 7 times. I wanted to shout at you, hey, it's me, dude. Just be up here, don't worry about it. But I thought that would make it even creepier. But the skill and the superpower I'll give you to take away, stare at people. See if you can get them to turn around and look at you. But better yet, when it's crowded at a Comic-Con, and this is where I've used my laser vision, as I call it, to good effect, is you know how like in a Comic-Con vendor's room, like it's mostly toddlers? Oh no, it's an expensive. You know, it's like a bunch of adult toddlers kind of milling and seething randomly. And like if you're like, you know you want to be over there, you're like, trying to get through the crowd. Well, I've done this at San Diego Comic-Con, all the different Comic-Cons. I use my eyes and I place my vision what looks to be the most natural path through. And I really hone it in, and I can pretty much run through a crowd. Like I did at San Diego, and all the artists, because Jessica had a table there, I wasn't a guest there that year, so I was just sitting with Jessica at the table. But like the bathroom was like 100 yards away that way, and I'd be like, I'm going to the bathroom, and I go, and I run, and I could run through the crowd, and I get to the bathroom, pee, run back, and like, they were like, you did not. And I'm like, I totally did. Like, you're lying. And I made it all the way there and back, want to follow me, so some of the guys tried to follow me, and I was like a ninja. I could slip through the crowd using my laser vision, because what happens is you start sending your vision that way, and that sort of random thing of people that they can feel that someone's going to come that way, and so they kind of like stop their approach. And the other place that we've all felt that eye laser ability is at a stop sign or when someone's in a car. There's something about someone being in a car that isolates them from whatever else is going on, and they can really feel it when someone's looking at them. You know it because someone will be like driving and you'll be walking on the side and you're like, dude, and they go like this, oh, and they look at you. They can feel when they're being looked at. So you can use that laser eye ability to zip through crowds. Someone have a question? Oh, that's not a hand, go ahead.
How does deja vu fit into your
Deja vu, vuja de, that distinct feeling this has never happened before. Deja vu, that feeling that this has happened before. Well, the the current Gamechurch theory, since it's my church, I get to say what the current Gamechurch theory is. The current Gamechurch theory on deja vu, the current sort of experimental activity we're working with is that you, if this were a game, if this were a democratically co-created reality, so that you are creating reality with your eyes. You are not only the receiver of information that is out there, but your idea of what it is helps project and collapse the waveform into reality. And this is, if you know Schrodinger's cat, you know, the idea that, or the double slit experiment, where they're shooting photons through 2 slits, and it shows as a wave pattern if it's observed, and if you don't observe it, it shows as a dot pattern. So and this is if you Google double slit experiment, it's a very famous experiment that shows that there's something on the quantum level that changes whether light is viewed as a wave or as a particle. But my current view on deja vu, it really sounds like they're trying to get in. My current view on deja vu is that Gamechurch believes that this is a choose-your-own adventure that we're in. And you know when you get to a choose-your-own adventure and you get to the end, it's like, do you want to go to page 72 and do this, or do you want to go to page 43 and do that? Well, there's also another choice. Do you want to go back and try to do this again? You're going to write the same chapter over and over again. I think that maybe we die all the time. I think like death happens way more often than we realize, and that we may never experience our own death. That life, so you're like, like right now I just keel over in a heart attack, and all you people in this universe would experience dead Chuck at the piano. You'd be like, boo, that was bad. I know. What happens is I just am like, oh, I
return to last checkpoint.
Do what?
Return to last checkpoint.
Return to last checkpoint, exactly. So that when you're like, I return to that checkpoint, so wherever the last checkpoint was, and I come back here and I'm like, Why does it seem like I've done this before?
Gamers don't die, they respawn.
They respawn. So that may be what's happening. And one of the ideas I have is that if I were a benevolent creator that was going to create non-player characters in a game for himself, and then he's like, non-player characters are boring, I should make them have artificial intelligence just like me. One thing people never think about God is that if God is real, then you are fake, because he made you. Because we always consider the stuff that we make fake, right? We don't consider it real. Yeah? Right? So if God is real, you are fake. You're an artificial God. If God is fake, then you are real. Maybe. I don't know, but yeah, I think you maybe you respawn and respawn. Like if I were a benevolent creator, I'd make it so that, you wouldn't be like, live your life and be like whatever, and then you're gonna die, and you did it, and now you're in this next place. You would, to me, I would make it so that it's like when you play a video game, and they have that sort of like, pick up the gun, soldier, this is how you load it, and you're like, oh my God, now I know how to load it. And then you go to that first level, and it's like, oh, now I have to load the gun and actually shoot it. You would practice, and you would make them, if the next level is a place where you have stronger co-creative abilities, and you can be like, mountains explode. If everyone could do that right now, this would be chaos. Everybody would be like, we have to have low power level here, because we would be destroying. We're destroying things all the time at the level we're at now. I think if we were able to be like superheroes, everybody would be destroying things. So as you learn to benevolently create, like perhaps the ultimate creator did for us, then maybe you respawn into greater and greater universes, and suddenly you'll look around and just be like, wait a minute, why can I fly? I picture when my grandma was dying, because I got to watch her die. I was there, I was her nurse, and her night nurse until she passed. And I saw her on that sort of deathbed, and she was back in the 1930s, dancing the Lindy Hop, talking to people, like in her head and in her voice. She was talking, and I could see her doing it. And I was like, she's responding back to she's going to do this again. And maybe when she does it again and gets to the point where she gets sick, she doesn't get sick. I picture my dad getting sick in the hospital bed, and I got to watch him die too. I picture him being like, because he was at his Uncle Mike's house, and he always loved his farm that he lived on there, and he got sick and went to the hospital from there. I picture him at Uncle Mike's house like, I'm feeling bad. But in the universe where he continues on, he went, I'm getting stronger. Farm life is good for me. Wow, I'm younger. Hey, and suddenly he's like, wait a minute. We're all growing into these wonderful, wonderful creatures. At least I think that's an amazing way to look at it. Anyway, it makes you really. There was a thought experiment I did one time that all men were one man and all women were one woman, so that we're only projections out of ourselves into other people. And I had that thought experiment so hard in my head that I was walking around doing errands. I was at the grocery store, and people kept going, dudes kept going, I know you. I had like 4 people do that to me because I was seeing them as me. I was like, what's up, Latino me with that tattoo? You're awesome. I'm totally cool. Everyone became another me, and it really did that whole sort of thing that all the great sort of religious teachers always say you should do, which is, do unto others. Suddenly the dude in the line in front of me at the post office that normally would have pissed me off because he was like, whatever, like, get your money out before you get, I was like, poor me, not with my money ready. You kid. You start to believe, when you start to sort of operate that way, you operate as if everyone is one, it makes it a lot easier to be kind to people, which is sort of one of those things churches are supposed to teach. And Gamechurch says, no trolling, don't troll, no camping, no trolling.
So don't stare at people at the airport?
No, stare at people at the airport. And the one thing that Gamechurch does to science is says that there are habits of science, because if we're creating this reality together, maybe we're making up the rules as we go along. And there's all this sort of fringy science. Electric universe theory is one of my favorites. And electric universe theory, the great place to start with electric universe theory is Google hexagonal craters. There are craters all over our solar system that are in the shape of hexagons, which doesn't make sense if a rock is slamming into another rock. But when a plasma discharges through a magnetic Z-pinch, it does so and creates a hexagonal shape. Electrical discharge makes hexagons. So maybe there's electrical stuff happening all over the universe. Yeah, the Van Allen radiation belts. How can you get through those to the moon? I don't know. You know, my favorite thing to do is to take the stupidest, most ridiculous theory in the world that you've ever heard and study it. Because like I had a buddy one time, he was like, yeah, the earth is hollow. And there's really dwarves and elves inside of it. Whatever, you're smugging, dude. Bring it over here. No, I was like, that dude is crazy. And then you're like, well, let's study that theory. And it's magical. It's a magical idea. And the latest one I got into, and this is the one that dumbfounded me, was I thought, what is the stupidest theory you've ever heard, ever? And to me, it was flat Earth. Like the earth is flat. And I was like, that's the dumbest ever. And then you study it and you're like, oh crap. Oh crap. You can't be serious. Maybe the earth is flat. And you go, how could that be possible? And it really, I mean, do you want to know why I think the earth might be flat? I think it might be flat from this game playing area and it renders as round when you get to space level. I don't know. But the earth is supposed to curve at 8 inches per mile square the distance, right? So in a mile, it curves 8 inches. At 2 miles, it curves 2 times 2 times 8, 32 inches. At, let's say 7 miles, what is that? 49 times 8 is roughly 350, like 30 feet. So at 8 miles, it curves 30 feet. So if you're looking from Iron Mountain at Philadelphia and New York, you can see both skylines. You can hold a ruler up. And from New York to Philadelphia, 120 miles, which should be a 9,600-foot curve. It's perfectly straight. Next time you go up in an airplane, hold a ruler up. Everywhere you look, it's perfectly straight. Like, it should be curving. It should totally be curving by now. There was an experiment they did called the Bedford level experiment that I want to repeat with a rope. Because the way they get out of the Bedford level experiment is they say diffraction through the atmosphere. The Bedford level experiment was in the Bedford Canal. Perfectly straight canal. If you know about water, water always finds level. So water is perfectly flat. And they had a dude with a telescope and another dude in a boat, and he took his boat and he rowed it 5 miles away, and the dude with the telescope watched him the whole time. 5 times 5 times 8 is 25 times 8, which is 200 divided by 16 feet. So there should have been a 16-foot rise in between in the water. You shouldn't have been able to see through the water to the other. You can look out that way. Look all the way across the bay. You can see all the way over there. It should be like a 42-foot bulge in the surface of the earth. Is it flat? Does it render flat here and you go up in space and it renders round, you know, like a different map in the game?
Flat perspective.
Is it, what is it that's going on? To me, it's fascinating because I think it's lovely. Some of the other stuff like tides, like gravity, like we're all talking, and this is where Gamechurch gets, sort of thumbs its nose at science church. Like gravity, do you know where we get the big G for gravity, which they use in all of science? Do you know where we got that, whatever, 1.8, whatever that gravity is? They got it from something called the Cavendish experiment 180 years ago. And it was a dude who hung 2 lead balls from a ceiling. That's where they got the constant for gravity. That's where Science Church performs a ritual and tells its adherents, this ritual tells us something that we can use as magic knowledge voodoo to trick you. So Gamechurch is really about truth, but it's also about playing the game properly. Like you can co-create, you can make things amazing. Do I have time? How much time do I have? I don't know, I've just been talking.
You have about 15 minutes.
15 minutes, awesome. I think we should open it up for more discussion. So, by the way, if the Earth is flat, which it could be, that means the outer rim of it, like this, is Antarctica. Did you know there's a treaty that all countries adhere to that says you can't go to Antarctica? It's the Antarctic Treaty.
Unless you're scientists.
Unless you're scientists and you have special permission. If you look at there's all these routes, these air routes that would be so easy if you were to do it across Antarctica. They say you can't because it's too cold, but in my last recollection, it's pretty darn cold at 37,000 feet anyway. Like, why is it much colder?
Maybe the magnetism would screw the instruments.
Sure, that could be it too. Magnetism is another really fascinating, interesting thing that people are like when I was a kid, I always thought that there was going to be magic science because of magnets. Because you know what? Rocks stick to each other. Like that blew my mind as a kid. Like, fix the world. This works. You know, like I didn't know why there wasn't more magic magnet stuff happening because everybody just went kind of like, yeah, magnets stick to each other, and you're like, that's the force. That's the force right there. Where's that? Put it in my hand. Stick stuff in my hand. Make that happen.
That's how Tesla was so.
Oh, Tesla, it is. I think Tesla knew Gamechurch. Tesla made, Tesla can be our first saint of Gamechurch. Saint Tesla. Thank you for giving up. We'll have to have some sort of weird, you know, like, lama lama, or whatever, you know, button masher, or I don't know. Saint Tesla can be our first, and thank you for giving Gamechurch its first saint. That's awesome. Saint Tesla.
And he unlocked Force Lightning.
He totally did. Man, Tesla was like, hey, guess what? Electricity is everywhere. You're bathed in it. Do this thing and you can have free electricity everywhere. And the powers that be were like, that's free and we can't charge for it and we like money. Yeah, studying people like Tesla, and then there's, what's the, Ed Leeds-Scalene in the, I forget what it's called, it's in Florida, but he's got this whole setup of rocks and like a 60-ton door you can open with your pinky because of how it's balanced, and he built the whole thing himself, and he said he'd unlocked the power of magnetism, but he didn't tell anyone how he did it. Ed Leeds-Scalene, and it's the Crystal Castle.
Coral Castle.
Coral Castle, thank you. I knew it would come to me. Morphic fields right there. Sarah. Yeah, so maybe Ed Leeds-Scalene could be another saint for the church. Yeah, it's a much more magical world that we live in. One of the what's his name now? I always think I can remember everything, and then I remember I'm getting old and I can't remember everything. I'll think of that one later. Anyway, I don't have to remember it all. Any other questions or ideas or thoughts? Yes.
Back to the role of connected, do you believe that mentalists are real? That have to do with it?
Do I believe that what?
Mentalists, people that can read minds.
Mentalists, people who can read minds? I believe that one of the ideas of morphic fields is it helps us understand why we're not able to understand memory in terms of a biological or chemical or protein synthesized something inside this wetware that we have here. Because the idea of memory from a morphic field perspective is that we create and deposit memories into a field around the Earth, or our morphic field. so that the memories, for lack of a better term, are deposited into a cloud. I know this all starts to sound like maybe we're just repeating ourselves over and over again with Wi-Fi and computers and internet, but because they cannot figure out where memories are stored in your brain, they think maybe the memories are stored not inside your brain, and your brain receives memories that you create and deposit into the great Google, cloud around the. And if that were true, if memories were deposited up there, then anyone could take them down at any time. Even active ones over there, I could read your mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Be another dimension with people who have arms and legs. And they're all like clapping and weird. Any other questions or thoughts or ideas? Yes?
Are you a big fan of Jungian psychology?
I wouldn't call myself a fan, but yeah, that would definitely lend it. And to say I'm not a fan doesn't mean I'm not a fan. I haven't studied it that much, but Jungian psychology has archetypes, right? Yeah. So it's talking about all these different archetypes and how people fit into them, and that would have a similar sort of,
one of the main points that he made was that children can dream about stuff like wolves without thinking.
Yes. Yeah. And dreams, my favorite thing about dreams is that if I were a benevolent creator allowing you to be in this game and you were on level 1, which is kind of boring because I gotta get a job and there's great evil Illuminati controlling the economy. It's not as fun as it should be, and it's like, okay, don't worry, you'll level up. And it's like if you wanted to practice, and this is something I always say, and gamers get this right away. If you wanted to practice being like super powerful, creative, I would give my creatures a space in which to do that. Maybe let's call it dreams. And you would get to be as powerful as you're going to be in the next level. But it would be in a very localized area. Like you would only be able to do it in this. And if you've played a video game and you're like, the door is, I can't go out that door, and you go, and then it's like you go this map is kind of small. I want the map to be open world. And in the video game, you just keep reaching these dead ends. How many of you have ever felt that in a dream where you're like, I can fly, but I'm falling because I flew too far over there, or I opened this door and it leads back to the door I just came in. And it's that sort of confusing. I think that's because it's maybe a play space. It's maybe a space in which we're allowed to be as creative as we can possibly be, but it's limited. It's limited so that you don't hurt other people's play spaces, or it's limited because you're not allowed to co-create with other people yet. Or if you do, it's very limited. Maybe, some people have dreams that, dude, I totally saw you in my dream. I totally saw you in my dream too.
You're a guest in their area.
You're a guest in their area. You're on their network server, for lack of a better term. It could be. I'm very fascinated by dreams in general, because I do lucid dreaming. If you want a lucid dream, the best way to lucid dream is practice reading things and get in the habit of reading. Like this teacher here says beep, bloop, blah, bleep, boop. So I read it, I turn away, I read it again, it still says the same thing. For whatever reason, in our dreams, when you read something, turn away, read it again, it'll say something different. And that will be your cue. Oh God, I'm dreaming. And the first time I did that, in a dream, I went beep, bloop, 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 looked around, and it was like something different. I went, oh God, I'm dreaming. And I went like this, and woke up. I was like, oh crap. And just knew I was, and then now I'm gone. So if you want a lucid dream, that's probably the easiest way to do it. So you just practice 5, 6, 8 times a day. Future shiny, look away. Future shiny. And then when you get in the habit of doing that, it'll happen in your dreams, and that habit, weirdly enough, carries over into dream world. And you end up in your dream world going, reading something, turning away, reading again. Oh God, it's different. I'm dreaming. And you're like, don't screw it up. And you start to be like, what do I want to do? I want to fly. Pretty much everybody wants to fly first. That's what I did. I went to fly. I picked up a cue ball off the pool table, I threw it through a wall, and the wall exploded out, and I flew out over a jungle. And then I was flying too far, and I went, like you can feel it. It's like I'm flying. It's like you're going off the map, and it's like, dropping me down. I'm like, ah! And like if you turn around and go back, suddenly I can fly again.
Out of bounds.
Yeah, and if you're ever scared in a dream, this is something that if you're ever having a nightmare, look for the light. Go towards the light. Maybe not when you're dead, I'm not sure. Some people who think that there's this whole like non-player characters being used for other people's games, and that you go towards the light, you recycle it, and then you're gonna end up being a sort of a light slave for other people. But that's for later Gamechurch sermons. Sermons? It's weird, you're recording it. My family's so good. He left the Catholic Church and started his own Gamechurch. I know, but on Sunday we play with Any other thoughts or questions, ideas? Yes?
They say that gamers are able to control their dreams better than normal people.
I bet gamers are able to. Yeah, I bet that is true. That gamers are able to control their dreams.
Sleep on it. Have you ever had problems in situations or?
Oh yes, yeah. And all actors know you study your lines before you go to sleep because you wake up and they're better memorized. Yeah. But the same thing is true with problems. If you're like, I don't know how to think about it right before you go to bed, you go to sleep, you wake up, and you're like, 27. That's so easy. Why didn't I think of that? But yeah, it's one of the best ways to find the answer to anything is to think about it really hard before you go to bed, and then you wake up with the answer. Yeah.
This might be a little bit weird, but it's your mind.
That a little bit weird? There's a horse in front of you. But go ahead.
She said the minimalist, but what about mediums or anything like that?
Mediums, yeah, I haven't explored that version of things yet. I'm not sure how that, I don't know how to make that part of but I'm not opposed to it, although most regular people will say, you're letting demons into your soul or whatever, which could be true. Maybe it is, but it's like dolphins being rapists. Because dolphins rape more humans than what great white sharks kill people every year. But like dolphins are sweet. They're like, don't judge us based on rapists. You don't judge you based on it. So like maybe there are spirits and other than then there's like really, really crappy ones. Yeah. Sorry about the dolphin thing. Didn't mean to ruin your vision of dolphins.
I love dolphins, now I hate them.
Don't judge them based on their criminal dolphins. Dolphins have criminal. It's really interesting. Dolphins in general are considered to be sentient, considered to be as intelligent as humans. And there is a tribe in Africa called the Dogon tribe. And the Dogon tribe happen to know that, the dog star, the Sirius A, the brightest star in the sky? Well, up until 1967, they didn't know that Sirius A was a binary and had Sirius B rotating around it every 67 days. But for some reason, in 1886, anthropologists studying the Dogon tribe were like, what the heck is in this cave? And they're like, oh, that's Sirius A and that's Sirius B, and it rotates around Sirius A every 67 days. And the fish people who came down and taught us farming and jumped in the ocean to become dolphins told us that that's where they came from. And the anthropologists were like, there is no star around Sirius A. What are you talking about? And then 6 years later, they're like, oh, yeah, there is a star around Sirius A. Maybe dolphins are aliens. Some of them are criminals. Or maybe they just really love you. Maybe they thought your scuba gear is not consent. Did I say scuba gear is not consent? That's good. That joke goes deep. It took a lot of setup to get to that one, right? I'm kind of proud of that. Scuba gear is not consent. I may do that. I may get a scuba gear is not consent with a little dolphin. morphic field, finishing each other's sentences. Yeah, I think there's a podcaster named Mark Maron who has a podcast called WTF, and he always, he'll get emotionally connected when someone else gets emotional, and then he'll cry. And he's always saying, I don't know why that happens. I think I know why it happens. In acting, we do something called mirroring, where you mirror someone else's emotions and you end up feeling them. They've done a study on the human face. There's like 72 muscles in the human face, and they do this test called the bite test, where they have people hooked up to functional magnetic resonance imagery, and they have them bite a pencil like this, and then bite a pencil like this. So it's essentially imitating the musculature for smiling and frowning. And when you bite a pencil like this, you activate the pleasure centers of your brain. When you bite a pencil like this, you make yourself sad and angry. So what you do, and this is where I'm teaching you your controller, because your whole body may be the controller. You may be in the game, because if you think about it, if you're in a fully immersive environment, like this, no. What are we starting to get? We're starting to get games that are like this. Maybe your whole body is the controller in this environment, and it's like, you want to be happy? Friggin' smile. It makes you happy.
Like Sword Art Online.
Like Sword Art Online.
Yes,
it's
I
all
agree.
starting to be one thing. It is all cookie. And also, cookies are good. That's
Ooh, and like this one game I played, I think it was Persona. They I don't know, they're like gaming people and they go into this different world and they fight each other and stuff like that. There's shadow type and normal type.
yeah. Some of these,
I don't really know the backstory.
you have people who flip out and do crazy things with whatever guns, or they go nuts. I sometimes think those people are like, it's a game, it's all a game, and they you get people who are schizophrenic, or people who are crazy, or people who are bipolar. Because sometimes I think that this world is, when I said it's universe on top of universe on top of universe, I sometimes think my bipolar friends are living in two different universes at the same time. And they go from being really happy to really sad, or really this to really that. And I'm like, you know what, maybe they're just kind of vibrating between two places at once. And it's like learning that maybe that's what it is. Makes
Like
it
quantum entanglement.
Like who?
Quantum entanglement?
Like quantum entanglement. Spooky action at a distance, yeah. So, any other questions on the act? Oh, we're over. I know. Any final questions? Any final questions for Gamechurch?
Yes, you
Yes.
just panel the next day.
Do what?
Are you doing this again?
No, I wish I was.
Are you doing any more panels?
I don't think so.
Aw.
I know, it's fun. It's Gamechurch fun. Should we do Gamechurch? Yeah. I'll start an online thing. We can do an online game.